Hi guys, it's Amy and you have found Amy Loves Crochet. Thank you so much for sitting with me today. I do sincerely appreciate any time you click on my videos. This is just a chit chat video, a little catch up for what I've been working on the last week. Sometimes I have a lot to talk about and sometimes I got a little bit. So you saw this shawl that I showed you last week, the Birds of Paradise shawl, and I had just a little bit of yarn left over, and I was not able to get that very last row on. They're like giant picots or a 3 treble crochet bobble stitch, and I just had a little bit of yarn left, so I didn't have enough. I started to do the last row the way that the pattern said, and realized right off the bat I was not going to have enough yarn left over. So I changed it and I extended they had some slip stitches in between each of those little like bobble things, and I tried to extend it and so that there was more slip stitches before the next bobble stitch, and I still realized I was just running out of yarn. Those little bobble stitches eat up a lot of yarn, so I just decided to call it quits with this one. This was such a big work for me, such a big challenge with keeping it slow, keeping it focused on what stitches. I told you guys every single row was a different stitch combination. Sometimes it was the same stitch all throughout. Sometimes there was like 2 items that repeated themselves throughout the row. So I'm really glad to be done with it. When there's such a big project on your lap or on your table, whatever, you know, it kind of takes up a lot. So I'm done with that. Just got a little bit of yarn left. I had said at one point that I was not able to just cut out this giant yarn nest, nesty barf thing. And so I just wanted to show you, at one point I did cut out a little bit of the yellow. And one of the things that was happening along my route with this is that I told you these are like 4 lengths of yarn together, 4 strands of yarn together, and they would not always keep up with themselves. So for example, you'd be, you know, pulling out more yarn and you've got one of these. So throughout the entire thing, I'm constantly like pulling myself flat so that when I get to that part of the yarn, it's all at one point. So I realized I could kind of afford to cut this chunk out at that point, and so that's what I did. I think that I got into like the 3rd or 4th shell on a row when it finally changed colors, and I decided, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and cut this part off, start the row with that new color, and go with it, and I'm glad I did. So didn't get my little bobbles on, but I got the double crochet round complete. Flora soft cake from Lindy Hobby. I thought that the colorway was just a number because that's all that was listed on the band here, but I decided to look it up and see if there really was a colorway that I somehow missed, and I did. Online, the website calls it Volcano. So if you enjoyed that colorway, I wanted to make sure to show you what the name of it was and not just a color, because I searched by the color number and it wasn't something that popped up. I had to go to the site and actually look through the cakes. Another piece that I forgot to share with you, when I was telling you about all of the crazy stitches that this project used, half treble crochet, double treble crochet, half double treble crochet, and a triple treble crochet, and then even a septuple treble crochet. There was also forked stitches. And so that was kind of like if you were doing a decrease. So you started the stitch in one stitch. You started this forked stitch into one stitch, and then you carried over to go into a second stitch and then finish them together. So it's kind of like a decrease where you start on one and then you pick up another one and then it becomes one stitch. That's kind of your mind, you know, if you're thinking about what the heck I'm talking about. It was kind of like that, but you're doing them as like triple trebles. So you've got like 1,000 yarn overs in your work there. That was quite a difficult one. So those were usually like on the edges to try to, you know, on the beginning of the row you would chain 12 or something like that, and then on the end stitch, the final stitch, you would do that forked so that it was your final stitch and you connected to the row below. So anyway, oh, and the working on that Birds of Paradise shawl was very difficult because, as you may have known, I told you about my fingernail. I started to lose a fingernail. Luckily, it only went halfway, so I still have half of a fingernail on that finger, but during a lot of the healing process, or I've got to keep some medicine on it to keep the skin soft and tender so it's not getting dried out and painful. So I had a Band-Aid on that finger through a lot of this shawl. And if you're like me, when you're crocheting, your middle finger there is helping to either feel the yarn or feel the hole that you're supposed to go into, or push the yarn back, push your hook back through. Like that finger helps to work my crochet. And so since it was covered with a Band-Aid, I couldn't feel my hook, I couldn't feel my stitches. So I was using my ring finger through a lot of that. And if that isn't, you've got your tension wrapped around your front finger, your index finger, and then you're using your ring finger to work that yarn through, and so your middle finger is just kind of floating out here with a big Band-Aid on it. It was kind of funny. But again, towards the end of my healing, I was able to not have the Band-Aid on there, so it was a little bit easier to finish up the project. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm always honest with you guys about my fails as well as my fabulous things. I don't know if I got an extra shell count in here somehow, but you can see here, I'll show you when I went to pin it, I was at a loss for what to do, because if I went around the edges, then the top was all like over itself. And if I tried to keep the top straight, then there was too much material within the sides to keep that border going flat. So in the pinning, it does look like I kind of have some points sticking out of the border, like I didn't pin the border flat. It was just really difficult to do. So I got to a point where I even stopped putting pins in it. I just laid it flat, let it dry the way it's going to, and call it done. So that is done. That is the Birds of Paradise shawl from Suvi's Crochet. And again, if you want to challenge yourself, if you want to just kind of step out of your norm, if this is your norm, this was really a different project for me, and I'm really, really glad I did it. So I suggest that you guys do it as well. If you feeling up to that intermediate level, it's a good stretch to work on something. If you want it really complicated, then work on that, and then pick up a hat or something in between, and then work on that, and then pick up a hat. So glad I'm done with that. Moving on. Okay. So the next crochet thing I want to talk about is my C2C blanket that I've been working on in the background. I showed you guys this at one point. I started it in January, and I've got the 5 different colors that I was working with. It started out because I had picked some up on a clearance, on the Hobby Lobby clearance during one year, and then I picked up like 2 of them then, and then picked up another one by itself, and then had to go in and fill in the blanks with actually like a purchase of ones that were not on clearance. So I think this was one that doesn't have a clearance sticker. So anyway, the colorways were, let's go to the blues first. This one was Mima's Blue, and this I think was one of my first ones that I had picked up from the clearance. So yeah, Mima's Blue, and dropped one. This one's the lighter colored. This one's just called Baby Blue. Baby's Blue. And then this one was my favorite, and it was called Cobalt. So the 2 aren't too different from each other, but it was enough to give some different look in the blanket. And then my 2 yellows were Banana, is a really nice bright one, and then Sun Kisses was a little bit more muted. These you can't quite tell as much difference from each other, I think, than you could with the blues. But so a total of 575 grams to begin with, and I have 357 grams left. So I can make a whole nother blanket like this if I wanted to. Maybe control the colors a little bit more, I'm not sure. What I wanted to do, I made a C2C blanket, and generally the C2C is made up with 6 stitches. There's a lot of us that use only 5 stitches for that. I am one of those. you do a chain 3 to grow up your level, and then many of us like to just use a chain 2 right there. So that is what I did. And this was going to be a project that was just sitting in the background. So like in between these big, really crazy ones, I could just kind of get a moment or two of brain peace to work on a C2C that we know. So I just went through and did a different count, either one, 2, 3, or 4 rows of the different colors at any time, and just alternated dark yellow, light yellow, and then kept the colors, the darkest, the cobalt, and then the Mimos, and then the baby blue all throughout. So it was a lot of fun. I get to the point where I'm at the border and I'm like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? A lot of times your count when you're doing, so when you're on a double crochet, say you do 1 in each stitch, on the wrong side of, because you're making blocks, so on the wrong side of the block, sometimes people will still put 3 stitches in there. Because I'm of the mindset of doing the 2 stitches, I kind of maintain that during my border. So what I did was 2 single crochets on each side, and then 1 in between the blocks, and then 2 on each side, and then in between the blocks. So even on the part where, never know how to hold this up for you, even on the part where, say right here, these are double crochets that I could actually go into, I went in between them, if you can see right here. So that maintained 2 on each side, whether it was the right side or the wrong side of the block, and then 1 in between the 2 blocks, so that it just kept my count going all the way around. And then what I did for the border is 2 half double crochets and then skip 1, and then 2 half double crochets and then skip 1. I like that. They do little tiny little clusters. I think they're super cute. I like to use those stitches for my border. So the blanket weighs 217 grams. It's about 37 by 37. I have the blocks in here are done 37 on one side and 37 on the other, if you're one that wants to count. And kind of a funny thing that I wanted to share with you, because it's hysterical if you ask me. When I started this project, I did not have written down which hook I had used. So what's my note say here? I wasn't sure what used. I continued with the 4.5, and then later I found a 4 hook stuck into one of the skeins. And so I realized I picked up the first corner of the blanket that I had started on was the blue. This blue section was the first, and I went to where I was at the time. You can see that my blocks were much smaller on this blue yarn. Let's see if I can try to hold it up. It's really hard to see. I could see it easily before I put the border on, but now it's a little bit more difficult to see. So I know by looking at these blocks, I started the project with a 4. Somewhere throughout, there was a 5 hook connected, and when I realized that I had all sorts of hook sizes going on, I think I was probably only up to about the dark blue here, somewhere down here. I decided, okay, let's do this with a 4.5 millimeter hook and just go with it. So the yarn itself calls for a 4.5 millimeter hook, which is why I think I'm glad I just went with that. This is a 3-weight yarn. It is 60% acrylic and 40% polyamide, which is like that polyester, which is what makes it so super duper duper soft. And it's super duper soft. And so yeah, 115 grams, and it's 3-weight. So I loved having this as my little background work, something to just kind of keep my mind going when I was like frustrated with something or confused on something, or maybe I just needed to turn off my brain. And, you know, I wish I knew how many C2C blankets I made. Probably 50. I'd say very easily throughout my crochet career, I probably made 50. So definitely a favorite stitch. Definitely one that I like to go to for a baby blanket, because I can pretty much keep it with no holes in there. You know, you don't want their little toes and their little fingers to get stuck in holes and stuff. So yay, I'm glad to have that finally finished. Okay, what else is up next? And did I say I started that in January? So yeah, I'm glad to be done with that. So then forward to the Birds of Paradise. I just finished that. I told you all about that. And so, yeah, so I picked up a new project to work on. I'm not sure that I'm loving it. Sometimes it's one of those, I've said very, very often, I say to trust the process. You just have to continue to work the pattern the way the pattern says to be worked or whatnot. Sometimes you don't always understand it, but then at the end you're like, oh, okay, that's why I did it like that. One of the other things that I was going to share with you was I kind of went on a rant. My husband called me out on it. It was really funny. So I told you I made the purple horse for my granddaughter, and I was going to make a horse for my neighbors who really have a horse. And so I was looking for the right yarn to, the right color and all that good stuff. And so I had finished looking at Michael's and left disappointed that I hadn't found anything. And so when I was back with my husband and telling him about it, I just went, my whole vent about Michael's. And he goes, wow, sounds like you've really broken up with him. So was I on a breakup with Michael's? I don't know. But I did end up going back after that. We looked at Hobby Lobby to find the yarn. I wasn't able to find it. We went back to Michael's. I found it there. So he just laughed at me that I broke up with Michael's and that I went back with tail between my legs and bought the yarn anyway. So that was just kind of funny. Okay, so then the last kind of yarny talk I'm going to do, and then I'll tell you about my concert goings that I was so excited about. But my next yarn project is on the horizon, and I'm not sure which yarn to use. So it's a project where I get to use a bunch of my Leading Men Fiber Arts. These are half of a full skein of fingering weight. They name these intermission because it's just, let me put that down. It's just kind of a half. And so it's fingering weight, it's 231 yards, and this is 75% superwash merino and 25% nylon. So these are something that I had been buying kind of in the beginning, like when I would go to Seven Sisters, I would just grab one more just because I like to buy from my favorite local yarn shop. And I was getting quite a collection of the different colorways. Some I bought all at once, some I bought separately, individually. And so I found a project that is going to use a bunch. And I got to looking at these and I wasn't sure whether I want this to be my group. So I'm calling on you guys to make some choices for me. Or would you have put that one in there? And I don't know if this is really an easy way for you to tell, like, does that still go? Would you like that variegated in there? Is that okay? So that's kind of what I'm working on right now, is trying to decide which ones I want to use. I don't know if I'm going to be using all of them equally for the project. So that's kind of still on the plans. I'm working with that. Let me know if you would prefer if this was your project, would you work with that variegated in there? Or would you instead work with, I was going to show you this all nice and pretty and it's not working out like that. So, or just go with the solids, stick with the solids. I kind of like both for different reasons, so I can't make up my mind. So I'm putting it on you guys. Let me know down in the comments which grouping you would prefer to work with, a variegated or not variegated. Alrighty guys, that's the end of my crochet chit chat, my yarn chit chat. And then I was just going to tell you about my concert. You guys know how excited I was. I think I expressed how excited I was to go. And I think I bought the tickets in like January. So for 5 months, I've been chomping at the bit. You know, you don't want the clock to pass too quickly, but if you've got an event that you're excited about, you want it to be today already. So here's what happened. Okay, so the concert, the advertisement for it says 7 o'clock right there. And my radio station talked about the fact that doors would open at 6, but the concert still said starting at 7. I knew that there was going to be the headliner, Phil Wickham, also Torrin Wells, and then Jamie McDonald would be there. Well, I had planned to be there, you know, at 6. I did not get there on time, and the exit from the freeway, like you're on the freeway, everything's fine, and then you're committed to the exit and you can see that you're backed up for days. So there was a part where people would get off of that. There was like this little side thing. I didn't know about it. I was already committed, and they went around and got in front. So from where I was, when I got off the highway, you could see it was like maybe a quarter mile, if even that. And it took me an hour to get through that section, to get parked and to get myself inside. And I was on the very top level of the parking garage. I had paid for the parking when I bought the ticket so that I wouldn't have to worry about it, because I'm not one of those that is really like street savvy, you know, like I don't want to be driving around looking for a parking spot or parking lots or whatever. So wanted to have my parking guaranteed, so I did. And again, and there was still a bajillion people showing up at that time. There was a lot of street activity still, hadn't even gotten inside the concert. So here's a picture from the top of the parking garage where I parked over to where I had to walk to the arena. So get inside the arena, and it was just after 7, right? And Torrin Wells was already like halfway through his set. So I had completely missed Jamie McDonald. I don't know why timing was told to us the way that it was. And she was like a special guest. So I don't know if they even try to talk about what time she was going to be there. I mean, I'm the kind of person that would have been there at like 2 o'clock. If I knew I was going to have these issues and stuff, I'd have been there at 2, just sitting there waiting in my car, whatever. Like that's how I roll. I do not enjoy getting to something so late like this. I do not enjoy sitting through traffic. None of that. And I'm by myself, remember. Like, I don't have any friends, and my husband is not a believer, so I go to faith-based things by myself. I go to reptile things by myself. He doesn't want to go to those. So I'm okay to be by myself, but I think that this was one of the events that kind of showed me I don't want to do this anymore. So I'm by myself. I would always, if I could, buy an aisle ticket for a concert, but generally you have to buy 2. So I told myself already off the rip that if I ever am going to do this again, I am buying an aisle seat, and I am buying the seat next to me to guarantee my space. Because, so how many of us have children that, you know, you hear the saying, like they're laughing, they're being terribly loud, and you want to yell at them to stop having fun. Like that was kind of like this. Okay, again, faith-based situation. People's arms are lifted in prayer, and people sway when they lift their arm. And this guy next to me was 1,000% in my space. I could barely see around his arm, up in my arm, up in my face the whole time. If I tried to lean this way at all, there's an old lady sitting in the chairs next to me, these 2 old lady friends, who would occasionally stand up, but most of the time they just sat. I'm on my feet enjoying my concert, right? I mean, that's what I'm trying to do. And this guy next to me is just like in my space. Like he was like right here the whole time. And so I told myself, if I like ask him to stop worshiping and get out of my space, like that's going to put him off. I already was put off. I don't think that I was like coming back into the best place at all because of having missed Jamie McDonald, already having this guy, like, don't tell me to tell you to get out of my space. Like, don't be oblivious to the surroundings, right? Recognize that you are in my space. So after, you know, getting half of Torrin Wells, there's a big intermission time before the headliners where they come out and they try to get you to sponsor a third world child type thing. So I decided to use this opportunity to go out and buy some merchandise. I wanted to buy some t-shirts. And so I got a couple shirts and was trying to debate on whether or not to get some food. I'm a cheapskate, so I decided not to get the food. Oh, I forgot. I did pick up a sub on the drive and ate it in my car while I was waiting for the light to change, like for an hour. And it was a horrible sandwich. So my dinner was not even good. So anyway, so I get inside, get my shirts, decide to finally go back to my seat for Phil Wickham. It was the best. I love Phil Wickham. I could relive moments of his concert all day long. I love him. I love his voice. I love his energy, like everything. It was amazing. I want to be there right now. I want to be there right now. But with this guy next to me, I could not take it anymore. He was just putting me off in such a bad headspace. And I am not one who, I didn't enjoy the traffic on the way in. You think I want to enjoy it on the way out as well? No. So I went ahead and split early so that I would have zero traffic to deal with, which was the case. So I was very happy about my drive home. But like being in the venue, and I thought, well, maybe I'll take a selfie with the stage or whatever, and then it doesn't look good, and then I'm embarrassed. And everybody around me is taking selfies with their people. So it was a little bit sad in the fact that I think I'm going to be all brave and go by myself, and then I'm sad and embarrassed and alone, and that's not fun. So if anything, I learned that that's probably the last one of those types of situations that I'm going to have myself in, but I just enjoyed Phil Wickham so much. I saw him 9 years ago. 9 years ago? 2017 was my other one. So yeah, 9 years ago. I was only 7 rows from the stage. It was a very, very much more exclusive venue. I can't remember where it was, but it was a much smaller venue. So for me to be seven rows from the stage was just, are you kidding me? And I thought for this event, I thought even if I'm just in the building, I'll still enjoy it. But I had like nosebleeder seats, so that wasn't fun. So I keep thinking I'll not do this again, but if I do it again, I'm going to definitely pay extra for a floor seat. So yeah, so that's how my concert event went. Great time, but was it a great time? Like one of those. I'm going to stay positive. I just think about Phil. And so now, like when I'm driving and I hear a song on the radio, I'm like, and in the concert, he was doing this, whatever. So it was wonderful. Glad it's come and gone, because again, like I'm all anxious that there's something on the calendar, and then I'm not enjoying life up until that because that's all I can think about. So now I'm back to kind of being free with my thoughts of just enjoying the day. We do have some vacation coming up in July around our anniversary, so that'll be fun. And a yarn event in July as well. So I think June's pretty open. I don't think I have anything for June, so that'll be interesting to just kind of float through life without something on the calendar, So, all right, guys, I think I've rambled plenty for this video. I hope everybody's doing well. Have a wonderfully blessed day, and I do hope you'll come back and see me again. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.